A few notes before we get started. We are recording today's webinar, and we post the recordings of webinars on the CFPB's YouTube channel, usually a couple weeks after the webinar takes place. So everyone will get an email with a link to that recording once it's available. A quick tour of our Adobe Connect layout. We'll go clockwise, starting with the slides that you see in the largest portion of the screen. Next to that is the chat window, and we'll use that at various points throughout the training for people to take part in the conversation about how to form a case review team. Next, moving clockwise, is the downloads box, and right now in that box you can download a copy of today's slides. Next to that is an FAQs and links box, and that has some helpful tech tips, and below the tech tips, if you scroll down, you'll find links to the specific resources that our presenters and panelists will be sharing with us today. And then last but not least, there's the Q&A box. And this is a place where you can submit questions to us to potentially have our panel consider and answer during the Q&A portion of our webinar today towards the end. So that's the tour of Adobe Connect. At this point, it's my pleasure to introduce Jennifer Duane, Senior Program Analyst with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's Office for Older Americans. And Ms. Duane co-leads the Elder Fraud Prevention and Response Networks initiative, and we'll start our webinar today. Jennifer, over to you. And Jennifer, you may still be muted. Sorry, everybody, for the technical difficulty. We'll just give 1 minute for Jennifer to be able to present. Apologies for this rough start. We just had a little technical difficulty. I'll go ahead and present some of these slides as we work out some technical challenges with our microphones. A note before we get started: this presentation includes this webinar includes presentations by presenters who are representatives of the CFPB, and they do not constitute legal interpretation, guidance, or advice of the Bureau. Any opinions or views stated by the presenter are the presenter's own and may not represent the Bureau's views. Today, during the webinar, we'll look at what a case review team looks like and the ways that case review teams approach their work. We'll talk about enhanced multidisciplinary teams, EMDTs, and how they augment the team's expertise by including specialized personnel like forensic accountants and other specialized professionals. We'll look at promising practices in forming and running case review teams, and we'll look at steps and resources for forming a case review team in your community. Great, and Jennifer, if you're able to unmute, please go ahead and do so.
Hi, Ben.
Oh, great. Sorry about that.
Oh, hi.
Would you like to take over from here?
Absolutely. That was one of the oddest things that I have experienced in a long time doing webinars. And I am hearing an echo. Is everyone else?
We don't hear it, Jennifer, so I think you can continue.
Okay, so I will just go slowly. Well, just as I was about to start, I was informed by my screen that I had been asked to leave the webinar. So I had to go sign back in. So I apologize for that snafu. Anyway, thank you, Ben, for covering. And let me just go back to the beginning, saying welcome, everybody. And just a quick background. I think I'm preaching to the choir here, but elder financial exploitation not only on the rise, it is burgeoning. In some communities, stakeholders across various disciplines are using case review to mobilize and coordinate on instances of suspected or confirmed exploitation. Case review teams bring together adult protective services, law enforcement, local prosecutors, agencies on aging, service providers, and many others to discuss specifics of individual cases and coordinate their activities. Can you all still hear me?
We sure can.
Great. The echo went away. All right. So the participating organizations in case review teams coordinate their approach to communication with the older community member, prevention of further exploitation, investigation of potential crimes and prosecution, and in addition, the discussion of individual cases can reveal trends and patterns that inform community-wide prevention efforts, particularly, I would add, when they knit multiple cases under the same perpetrators together. That's always a jackpot for our first responders. So, in addition to attending this event today, we invite you to review recordings of other CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, webinars on elder justice topics. We have a big library. You can visit it, and I think someone will probably throw this up in the chat by going to consumerfinance.gov/elder networks, which will take you to our network development guide. And on the first page are some very key links. So you'll find resources to build or enhance an elder justice network in your area. And it does not matter where you are in doing that, whether you're starting or whether you're well down the line, there's lots of tools in there that can help you to assess your current situation and then decide how to go forward with expanding your team or tightening your team or creating your team, whatever the case may be. So I think that Ben already went over what we are going to go over today, so I'll skip a little bit forward. I want to extend a huge thank you to our growing fan club for this series of webinars. To date, we have about 15 of them. It's either 14 or 15, Ben. I can't recall. I'm starting to lose count. And over 15,000 elder justice professionals have attended. They are recorded, as you heard, so you can tap into them by going to that URL for the Elder Network Development Guide. And it should be noted, just for your own information, we'll see how it goes today with the next set of polls, that every one of our webinars, nearly 50% of the participants are financial institution representatives. So, to all of you who take the time out of your busy schedules, you financial services folks, to attend these meetings, to meet people and to improve your knowledge of the landscape and also to provide expertise. Many of you have been on board, and we just had a really fabulous webinar on the payments association's payments professional segment of the elder justice movement. That just happened a couple days ago. So stay tuned for more information on that. And if this is your first time joining one of our webinars, an extra welcome to you. And please feel free to identify yourself in the chat so that we can thank you personally. So now, should we move to the Mentimeter, Ben?
We definitely can. So
Okay.
in a moment, people will see our first set of polls.
All right. So here's your poll. First of all, what is your familiarity with case review teams? The scale goes from not at all to very familiar. So please feel free to jump in there. And then the second poll, if you're done with the first poll, is, are you currently a member of a case review team? If that number holds, then we have a big treat for you. Lots of information on how to become a member or how to start a team, which you may not learn all about today, but we have information in that web library, that knowledge bank. Okay. And if you answered yes, sorry, did I miss one here? Are you currently a member of, if you participate in a case review team, which organizations are represented there? Don't see any financial. Oh, yes, I do. Lots of financial institutions so far. Good. And geriatricians and physicians, psychologists, forensic accounting experts. Wonderful. That's a whole area we need to hear from in the near future. Okay, are we done with the poll? So I think we've heard today's topics from Ben. He jumped straight in. So we'll talk about what case review teams look like. And you've got the list. So we'll just carry on and I will introduce the speakers and then we'll be off to the races. So I didn't even introduce myself. I'm Jennifer Duane. And I am Senior Program Analyst at the Office for Older Americans, or in the Office for Older Americans at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in Washington, D.C. And I've been with the Bureau since 2011, and I have 25 years experience working in elder justice issues and basically prevention, response, relief, or interdiction or resolution. And my colleague Talitha Gwynn Shaver also has been around, I'm pretty sure, just about as long as I have, if not possibly a little longer. But Talitha Gwynn Shaver, let me get to her bio here real quick. She is the multidisciplinary technical advisor for the Elder Justice Initiative at the U.S. Department of Justice. In that role, she works to build capacity of MDTs across the country. Her experience with MDTs includes her prior role as director of the Elder Abuse Prevention Program at the Institute on Aging in San Francisco, where I first met her. And that included her prior role. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. Elder Abuse Forensic Center, and her also prior role was chair of the San Francisco Elder Abuse MDT. And those were the days. I won't name drop Talitha, but I remember who was DA at the time. And those were really great days for building these foundations that are now covering the country. And then Allison Granada is the director for Enhanced MDT initiatives for Upstate Elder Abuse Center at Lifespan. She'll describe ways that her statewide network makes collaboration happen to protect older people throughout New York State. Since 2012, Allison has specialized in preventing and addressing financial exploitation of older adults. Next slide. And then we have Darlene D'Onofrio. I hope I got that right. You are coordinator of the Mohawk Region Enhanced EMDT in New York State, which is part of the larger statewide network. You will share stories, experience, and perspectives from the point of view of an energetic and engaged local network. And then we have Linda Laughlin-Pettit, who is manager of community and government relations in Denver at the city attorney's office. Linda has been a key driver of network-based case review work in Denver and will drive reflections on that work and innovations that she and other colleagues in Denver have developed, including the Senior Resource Coordinator role. And then we have Angela Rosato. Hello, Angela. She is an elder abuse forensic center coordinator for the Riverside County Department of Public Social Services in California. Her leadership in multidisciplinary teams and case review extends beyond her work in Riverside County and also includes contributing to statewide and national conversations on promising practices. So we have a stellar lineup here for you today. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Talitha to take over. Oh, should I stop and go to? I could. Now let's put it at the end. I can go back to that at the very end. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm very happy to be here today to get to talk to you all a little bit about elder abuse case review MDTs. And let's just talk a little bit about the Elder Justice Initiative. The program there is really designed to help you start, grow, enhance, sustain your elder abuse MDTs. We have a variety of resources for you, including an MDT guide and toolkit that walks you through the various stages of starting an MDT and things that your team needs to think about to get established. We have outreach materials that you can take and use. We have training materials from many disciplines, including prosecutor videos. And we have pre-recorded webinars that you're welcome to go and check out. So if you haven't checked out the website in a while, I invite you to go over and take a look there. I run the MDT Technical Assistance Center, and I am here for all of you. So if you're looking to talk to somebody about starting a team, you can call me. I do free consultations. We also do webinars. We produce educational materials. I will also look for resources for you. So if you're getting stuck and you're wanting to know something like best practices for integrating person-centered care into your MDT or whatever the case might be, you're trying to find something that's a little obscure and hard to find, I have a resource database that I can go and pull from, and I'm also happy to do some of the legwork for you. So feel free to reach out to me if you would like help, or if you encounter a challenge after you've already established your MDT, because that is normal and the challenges happen to everyone. It's part of the process. So let's chat a little bit about what MDTs are. This model is rooted in the biopsychosocial approach, which systematically looks at the biological, psychological, and social factors that in this case interact to and create complexities when you're working with older adults. So it is this interdisciplinary perspective, and then you want to look at who's participating on your team. And for us, when we talk about a really general term of MDT, we're talking about at least 3 disciplines who've come together to work collaboratively, have a common purpose, shared vision, mission, goals, etc. There are lots of different types of MDTs. You might have teams that are working on public outreach, policy, systems issues, and then ones that work on case review. So they're actually looking at cases of elder abuse. And those can be generalized or they can be specialized. So you might have a general team like a hoarding team or guardianship team or code enforcement, etc. And they may have clients that have experienced elder abuse. And so there's an overlap in the population. Then you might have specialized teams like your financial abuse specialist teams, elder fatality review teams, and even just your regular elder abuse teams. So they're looking at elder abuse of specific individuals, and they're only working with elder abuse victims. So when you look at elder abuse case review, MDTs, you're going to think about the multiple agencies and organizations that you can invite to be a part of the conversation to help you review these cases. When you bring everyone to the table, it's important to note that each agency is going to maintain their professional role while collaborating within this group of multiple agencies. So the work of each agency is able to complement the other and lend support and important perspectives to the work that you're doing together jointly. It also means that where you bump up against your limitations in your profession or your agency, there's probably another agency or organization that can meet that gap. And so having these collaborations is a really important tool to try to help people not fall through the cracks in our systems. So this coordinated response can also lessen the burden of investigation on individual agencies, because you're going to have all these people here to lend their thought process, their ideas, their perspectives, and jointly have some decision-making capacity about how things should proceed. Also, you can have conversations about if you've done everything that you can. And so I think a lot of times people struggle with closing a case because it doesn't sit right, doesn't feel right. And being able to consult with all these different professionals at the table can really help to resolve some of that anxiety and looking at, have we done everything? Is there one more thing we could do? If so, what is that? If not, is it appropriate to close this case? And that can be helpful to the individuals on the team. We also see better case outcomes for the client, the community, and participating agencies. So coordination has a lot of benefits for everyone. Common core members that you might see on an MDT, and this is looking across the country, not that every team has these players, but that when we look at as many teams as we can in congregate, we see these types of professionals participating. So you might have adult protective services, other aging services network personnel, geriatricians or physicians, law enforcement, prosecutors, psychologists or neuropsychologists, victim witness advocates, victim service providers, and folks from the financial industries, especially if it's a FAST team or a financial abuse specialist team. So if there's lots of different models and lots of different ways to do it and lots of different professions that can be at the table, what is the best one? What are we supposed to be doing? And for this, I would love it if you could take to the chat to humor me in a little exercise. So we're going to talk about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? The most basic thing that you can think of as an American, your sort of like staple growing up, PB&J. It's got three elements, right? Just like we're talking about with MDTs in the most basic formation, it's three professions talking about elder abuse. But I want to know, what does your PB&J look like? So do you do white bread, wheat? Are you putting it on a bagel? Are you really wanting to go with grape jelly or strawberry jam, or are you skipping it and going with honey? Are you putting anything unusual on it, like bacon or bananas or something like that? So let me see what you have going on here. I see English muffin. That's nice. White bread, peanut butter on both sides, strawberry jelly only. I like it. Crunchy peanut butter. Yes, crunchy or smooth. That can be a good one. Raspberry jam, toasted wheat bread. Yes, some of us really like it toasted. Okay, we've got some very specific brands of peanut butter. So Jif, I'm seeing Jif. Oh, and sunflower seed butter. So skipping the peanut and going over to a different type. Sourdough bread, I've never tried that, but that sounds good. Let's see here. Wheat bread, honey, homemade jelly. Ooh, that sounds good. I love homemade jelly. So I think when you think about PB&Js, right, it's this really basic sort of structure. But when you start drilling down into what works for you, what you really like, it could really look differently. You know, everybody's PB&J is specialized. And to apply this to sort of the idea around MDTs, it's that you're going to want to work with the model that works for you is the one that works for you. So you want to look and see, what resources do I have in my community? Who is willing to come to the table? Who do I need to court to try to bring them into the conversation? Where are the relationships to be built? What can work for us? What are the needs of the individuals we're serving? Are we looking to make sure that we are equitably sharing our resources in the community? So all of these considerations go into how you assemble your MDT, and it will look different than the one in the next county over, just like your PB&J looks different than the next person in the chat. So if we aren't going to endorse or say there's one best model, what do we know about strong MDTs? So regardless of how you've structured things, there are really 5 key elements to making a team function effectively. The first is shared decision making. So the entire team is participating in that decision making process, sharing information, sharing successes. Everybody has a voice into the process and feels a part of the team. Again, that partnership. So you will have some type of hopefully formal agreement. There are informal MDTs, but we find that strong MDTs have some sort of formalized agreement, that they have an MOU or interagency agreement or some other thing that binds people together, and where they agree on what they're each going to contribute and get out of this, this experience together. Interdependency. So the group and individual outcomes are influenced by the team. You begin to see when you work on an MDT that you will change the way that you think about some of your cases, as will others on your team. There's a lot of learning that happens between the various professionals, and it's for the betterment of the clients. You're going to see things in a more holistic way. You're going to learn things from different lenses of the various professions that you're collaborating with. And you're going to realize that when you're working together and you're looking at this as an interdependent relationship, that you're going to see better outcomes for your clients. So strong teams also have a balance of power, and this can be a challenging thing. You might have somebody who is an elected official or very high up in an office. You might have somebody high up in law enforcement, and then you might have somebody who maybe is new to the field or who doesn't have a lot of clout behind their title. So the role of the person coordinating the teams is to help balance that power so that everybody feels safe to talk in the group. They feel like their opinion and their voice and their perspective matters, and that there's nobody in the group who has all of the power, dominates all the conversations, and whose will reigns supreme, that this is truly collaborative experience and that there's a balance of power there. And then strong teams have very clear processes. So you want to develop your protocols. You want to introduce predictability and accountability into your case review process, and also include protocols for conflict resolution. Most of the teams I've worked with have not ever needed to go back and utilize those protocols, but if you need them, it is really useful to have them. So these are just some things to think about cultivating within your teams as you're getting going, as your foundation to make your team strong. When you're getting into the work, there are some tips here for building trust and managing expectations. And one of them is to work on understanding the organizational culture, roles, and limitations of the partner agencies. I think there can be a lot of misunderstandings that arise just from understanding what people can and cannot do in their job, what their legal parameters are. And those expectations can set up resentments against various agencies. And people will say, they never do anything. Why should I collaborate with them? They never call me back, or they never give me any information, or I can't get them to go out with me. When maybe the true core of it is you're not understanding what they can do, and also what you can do that might help meet those gaps in an MDT. Everyone understands what they will get out of participation, what they're expected to contribute. There's a focus on accountability and reliability. Again, everybody's voice is heard. There's psychological safety on your team, so people feel free to speak. There are strong, clear, and agreed upon collaboration documents. You have a commitment to addressing problems and conflict head on and promptly. And very important that your team is not focused on blame, but rather supporting one another's work. If a case is coming to your team, it's probably because there's a complication, there's a problem, and it doesn't serve anyone, especially the client, for people to point fingers and say, well, this agency dropped the ball, or they could have done more, you did something wrong. What really works is to look at where we are now, where we want to be, and how do we get there together. So keeping that focus on your client and on ways that you can learn together and support each other's work. Also, working cases together. I mean, there's nothing like just jumping into the work and collaborating. I think you learn a lot about the practices of the various disciplines, ways that you can improve the work that you do, and really gain a lot of respect for the professionals that you're working with when you see their dedication to the issues that you're also dedicated to. And then it's just useful to get to know each other personally as well. All of that might sound like a lot, and that's just the light version, but you're here in a supported environment. There are lots of ways that myself and others on this call today can provide support to you. We have, again, those consultations that you can set up with me if you're interested. We also have an Elder Justice Network locator map. So if you want to look around and see what other teams exist in your area, so you can collaborate with them or speak to them, that is there for you. And if you have a team that you would like to join, you are welcome. We also have an MDT peer support community that you can join. This is sort of like a closed social media platform. So you have a place where you can post questions, we have a resource library, and we have a listserv. So anytime anybody posts a question or a training, everybody has an opportunity to read that and respond. And it's a way for you to support one another in the work that you're doing. So here is my email address. And so if you'd like to speak to me further, just shoot me an email and I'm happy to chat with you. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Allison now.
Great. Thank you so much, Talitha. And next we'll hear from Allison Granada, Director for EMDT Initiatives for the Upstate Elder Abuse Center at Lifespan. Allison, you'll take us through what you've learned from operating and overseeing that statewide network. Over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Ben. Really appreciate it. And Talitha and Jennifer, it's been great to hear from both of you. So as Ben mentioned, my name is Allison Granada, and I am the Director for EMDT Initiatives. It's a really long title, along with my long agency name of Upstate Elder Abuse Center at Lifespan. And so I'm really excited to be joining and share some information about the New York State Enhanced Multidisciplinary Teams. So just to give a little bit of background, we initially began receiving funding to create these Enhanced Multidisciplinary Teams, or EMDTs, back in 2012. We received funding from the Administration for Community Living, and there were 2 pilot areas at that time. We were starting this kind of hub concept, which I'll touch base on in just a few minutes, but in 2 areas. And so one was the Finger Lakes region, which included 7 counties, that was coordinated by Lifespan. And then one was in Manhattan, which the New York City Elder Abuse Center, NYSEAC, that was their name at the time, now currently Center for Elder Abuse Solutions, coordinated. And so I was actually the original coordinator for the Finger Lakes region here housed out of Rochester, New York. And I coordinated 7 teams. I started up and coordinated 7 teams. So my full-time job was specifically surrounding coordinating EMDTs. In 2016, we received some additional funding from the New York State Legislature so that we could sustain the teams that were in existence, as well as expand our reach. And then in 2017, we had the opportunity to work with the Office of Victim Services that partnered with the New York State Office for the Aging so that we could expand our teams across New York State. And at this point, we have the entire state funded to have enhanced multidisciplinary teams, and I believe we're at 60 out of 62 of the counties operational. And so you heard Talitha talk a lot about what multidisciplinary teams are, so I won't get too far into that, but that the enhanced aspect, so that originated from when we received funding back in 2012. And the purpose of that was really because of our specific focus was on financial exploitation. In addition to that, we were also, the enhancement, or the E, allowed us to have access to civil legal services, forensic accounting, and mental health professionals, or geriatric psychiatrists. And so the access that I'm speaking of is that our funding allowed us to work directly with some of these professionals, basically to cover the cost of some of these services that are often needed during some of these cases, but are often difficult for victims or clients to access due to the cost. So as I mentioned, we were expanding across the state, and we have this hub or region concept. So the EMDT hubs. So we have 11 EMDT hubs across New York State, and Lifespan is the fiduciary for the entire statewide network. Our funding comes from the New York State Office for the Aging, who again has partnered with the New York State Office of Victim Services, and we fund agencies in these specific hub areas, as you can see them divided on the map that you're seeing now. And in essence, we have multiple counties in each hub. And so there tend to be one, maybe two in some instances, coordinators that are employed through each of those hubs who are coordinating EMDTs in every county in their hub. And so across New York State, we currently have 15 coordinators that are funded to pull teams together and review cases of elder abuse. And so I mentioned previously that when we received our initial funding, we were specific to financial exploitation cases. However, with the addition of our Office of Victim Service funding, we expanded to include all forms of elder abuse. The only thing that we do not address is self-neglect cases. So the statewide approach, which is a little bit, it tends to be fairly unique. So there are a lot of benefits that we see from having the statewide approach. For one thing, as again, I still coordinate 3 teams of my own while also overseeing the statewide expansion. And so I personally really love the network of EMDT coordinators. Those, there are 14 other coordinators across the state that are doing the same work that I am doing. And so we're able to work together to learn from each other and feed off of each other to try to identify what are some of the best ways, best practices that we can address these cases, as well as navigate some of the team dynamics when we run into difficulties with certain team dynamics or situations and team development. We, through the New York State Initiative, we have monthly, we call them peer leadership group meetings. This is, it's actually offered twice a month through one of our technical assistance providers from the Center for Elder Abuse Solutions, that she hosts those peer leadership group meetings where the coordinators are coming together. We also offer an EMDT coordinator case support meeting, where this was in response to needs identified by EMDT coordinators, where sometimes there were cases that they just, either they or their teams really felt that there may be other options that they can explore, but they felt a little bit stuck with where to go. And so that was a resource that they asked to be able to just basically kind of do a case review with the other EMDT coordinators. In addition, we offer statewide technical assistance, where we have 4 technical assistance providers that are working directly with the EMDT coordinators across the state, as well as the team members to ensure that their needs are being met, somewhat similar to a lot of the services that Talitha offers. We have statewide policies that are part of the initiative, and then the procedures of how you actually implement those policies, they vary from hub to hub. And in some cases, they vary from county to county, because like Talitha showed, not only, every team is a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And so while I really like my mother-in-law's homemade strawberry jam, somebody else may not like that. And so we are adapting to what is best for that community that we are going into. We also host an annual statewide EMDT conference. It's actually next week. But one of the things that's really neat with having this hub concept, as well as the statewide approach, is that not only are you developing those relationships within your own county and those that are working directly around you, but then you also have access to other professionals within your hub, which may be counties that are bordering your own county, or even across the state. And so we're really building on those statewide networks and really trying to develop those relationships and the knowledge that we can access within our own state. And it's been really exciting to see, and we've seen a lot of people take advantage of that. And then in addition to that, we're able to offer access to those limited specialty services and resources, such as the enhancements, which I will talk a little bit further about now. So I mentioned the forensic accounting, the mental health professionals, and the civil legal providers. So you'll hear kind of a theme as I'm touching base on these, is that really a big piece of all of their roles is a lot of education, helping us as team members, as those who are listening to the cases and doing some of the direct intervention, helping us to understand some of the complexities of what is happening in some of these cases. In addition to that, they are able to do some of the direct intervention. And so for forensic accountants, you can take, for those who are in the financial institution, you may have sent, hundreds of thousands of pages of bank statements to law enforcement, and law enforcement would be able to then take those pages to an EMDT and be able to have a forensic accountant do a review of the bank statements, credit card statements, investment statements, and be able to pull together the analysis and aggregate data to show a pattern, a theme, how funds are being spent, and what can be attributed to the victim, the suspected perpetrator, and what's unaccounted for. With the geriatric psychiatrist, they are able, and the mental health professionals, again, I'm going to say a lot of education, a lot of understanding of what are some of the things that we need to think about in regards to how somebody's capacity may impact the recommendations that we're making on a case, or just how somebody's medical conditions may impact long-term. We had a case recently where we had a victim who had Turner syndrome that we weren't super familiar with. So the geriatric psychiatrist was able to provide us a brief overview of what Turner syndrome was, as well as how that would impact this individual as she continued to progress through the disease. For the geriatric psychiatrists are also able to provide capacity assessments, and that has been a huge, huge success in a couple of ways. One, in terms of, do we need one? Because I think a lot of times people just automatically assume that you do. But in addition to that, helping us think through those pieces. But in addition to that, when it is needed, being able to utilize that resource and have the, whether it's for pursuing guardianship or whether it's for law enforcement purposes, whether somebody has the capacity to, indicate whether they could, provide money to somebody, it's been extremely instrumental in a lot of cases. And for civil legal providers, this is something that was not originally part of our funding for the enhancement, but we came back and ended up adding it on because not all cases are criminal. It might sound very obvious, like, duh, Allison, I know that. But a lot of times, especially as an EMDT coordinator, everybody wants a case to be criminal. There are times that I would like that as well. However, I have seen the huge benefit of having civil cases progress. And so there are various ways that they engage with the teams. Again, education, but as well as, perhaps for New York State, revoking or naming a new power of attorney agent, and then also going as far as actually pursuing a civil case against a perpetrator. So you can hear a little bit more about directly from our specialty service providers. These are, about 5 to 5-ish minute each videos that our providers share more about their role and how they see their role benefiting the team, as well as the benefits that they receive from participating in EMDTs. And in addition to that, you can hear from other professionals. Talitha had shared some of the common disciplines that you see sitting on teams, and we have asked a lot of those professionals to come and share with us some of what their role is, from adult protective services to aging services, the DA's office, law enforcement. We had some of our EMDT coordinators share, and then there's a mock EMDT meeting as well as the mock case consultation with an EMDT coordinator. And just to share a couple of outcomes from last calendar year across, again, for this statewide initiative, There were 60 EMDTs that were operational. That means that they are meeting on a somewhat regular basis. I say somewhat because it depends on the county. Some are once a month, some are once every quarter. It all depends. But there were 401 EMDT meetings held in New York State and 398 referrals to EMDT coordinators in New York State. And so that's 401 times that people came to the table to discuss these cases, to try to make an impact on these cases, and to try to make recommendations and identify what solutions might be options for these individuals to consider. And then one of the fun numbers that we like to share is we track as best we can what the court-ordered or agreed-upon restitution has been in our cases. In 2023, across New York State, we saw $723,427 in court-ordered or agreed-upon restitution. And since inception, which my first restitution order happened in 2013, we have seen across New York State over close to $5 million, so $400,838,000 in restitution that has been ordered for victims of elder abuse, which has been very exciting to see. We've had cases that have been millions of dollars, and then we've had cases that have been, I had one case that the woman just desperately wanted the funds that were stolen from her so she could buy her bananas, and it was $523.47. And so that was a huge win for us. Here's my contact information. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I would love to touch base. I get a lot of excitement in talking about EMDTs and sharing some of the resources that we have. So Darlene, I think it'll be passed over to you, but I think Ben will briefly introduce you.
Great. Thank you very much, Allison. And next we do have Darlene D'Onofrio, who coordinates the Mohawk Region EMDT in New York State, part of Allison, your network. And Darlene, I'll put us into panel mode so you can share your video as you share a little bit about your experience in the Mohawk
Hello,
region.
everyone. Thank you for the invitation to present. I am a paralegal with the Legal Aid Society for Northeastern New York. I have been here for 4 years, and in that role, I've developed the Mohawk Region EMDT Hub. My counties are Fulton, Montgomery, Hamilton, Warren, Washington, Saratoga, and Schoharie. So I have 7 counties, but I have 5 teams. The Hamilton, Warren, Washington team functions as one team because Hamilton County is the smallest population county in the state. It has only 5,000 permanent residents. So they have bordering counties of Washington and Warren, and they share Office for the Aging Services, they have a hospital, they share veteran services. So we started to develop the teams and decided that we would try to operate them as one and see how it was going. Absolutely works fine. We have had no concerns over, more than one county being, represented at that table. I'm going to back up a little bit and let you know how we started the program here. Initially, what I did, I thought about the counties where I was, looked up the services that were available, reached out by letter to the key players that everyone's already referenced: adult protective legal agencies, banks, hospitals, adult protective services, sent out flyers and information regarding the initiative, what we were looking to do, how we were going to proceed. And then what I did is I followed up with a phone call to each one of those people on each one of the teams. Each team is a peanut butter and jelly here again. Everything is different based on your geographic location, what's available in your community, and the population you have to work with. So it's a struggle. It takes a while. I would tell everybody who's starting from the ground up, do not get discouraged because it really works. When I first started, I was a little bit skeptical, thinking, okay, we have all these agencies, not necessarily all operating on the same page. How are we going to put them all at the table and get everyone to work well together? My fear was totally unwarranted. All the agencies were appreciative of the other people at the table, knowing that now they were only responsible for what they do. and the other agencies could pick up the slack for things like maybe putting meals and wheels in place, obtaining bank records, getting the forensic accountant to review those if necessary. I'm lucky in the fact that I work for legal aid, so the civil attorney assigned to my hub is actually one of my coworkers. So that makes that portion so very much easier for us. If you're having trouble getting cases, be patient. You're going to get one case, and then all of a sudden, you're going to get another and another and another. My counties are small, mainly rural, and right now I operate between 20 and 25 cases at any given time. What I've done with counties where I do not have cases, especially in the beginning, is invite other teams to attend other team meetings so they can get the feel for how it works, see the cases that we're dealing with, and it might spark some sort of, thing saying, oh, well, we're working on a case like this. This is an excellent forum. Let us bring that to the table. That worked great. That sparked like cases from 3 other teams. So that was excellent. We get the majority of our cases from law enforcement, OFAs, adult protective, and hospitals. Legal Aid Society also has what we call a legal line where people can call in for assistance and information. And we've actually had EMDT cases referred to me through that legal line. So people are actually calling and asking for assistance on their own. And in that case, they meet initially with the civil attorney, and then we go from there. Because we have the care of client confidentiality, we have specific releases and protocols put in place so that there's no breach of client confidentiality from legal aid to me onto EMDT members. If you're having trouble getting people to the table, I suggest you join everything that you can get to. Join OFA councils. I'm on the OFA council for Fulton County OFA. I'm on the Fulton County Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Response Team, the Montgomery County Sexual Assault Response Team, Domestic Violence. We do presentations about our services at local libraries. We table at senior events. We're doing the Fulton County picnic for the seniors is tomorrow. We'll be doing the Warren County one. Hamilton and Warren counties have one picnic together. We'll be doing that. And we'll be doing the Washington one. And then we'll be doing a senior expo in Warren County. So the more you can get your face recognized and get your information out there, the more cases you're going to find come your way, because a lot of times people don't know we exist, unless they have some information that they work with another agency, they may not know that EMDT is really available to them. We have had some significant cases in my county. Small rural counties, you wouldn't think that you would have a case where, a gentleman who sadly has since passed away had his power of attorney defraud him to the tune of $1.4 million in a small community like Fulton. The case still pending, has been pending for quite some time. It came to us through the bank, through the local sheriff's department. The perpetrator has been arrested. She has grand larceny, 1 felonies pending against her in a county court or in town court here. It has not yet been divested to a county court. For people who don't know what that means, lower courts cannot process and make convictions of criminal cases that are felonies. You have to be convicted of a felony case in a county court. I was a probation officer for 33 years, so the court system is very familiar to me. We did a forensic accounting report on that case, which was amazing. I had zip drives, boxes and boxes and boxes of files filling up the back of my RAV4 that the forensic accounting team put together in a report that's amazing. And I think one thing that did not get mentioned is if a case actually goes to trial, the forensic accounting team is available at no cost to take part in that trial for the district attorney's office and the prosecution. So that is a huge piece for law enforcement and district attorney's offices. You have to find ways to keep your team engaged. There may be times when you don't have a case. 2 or 3 months could go by without a case. So what I would do in that case is have the team meet and arrange for 1 or 2 members of the team to actually present to the full team what their agency does, what they're able to do, what they're not able to do, so that there's no expectations about, APS being able to do something that they're not able to do. We have had no issue needing conflict resolution. Everyone works well, everyone is respectful. I think that if you're going to start the team, you need to, lay out the groundwork that you do run the team. If there are issues that people feel they have, they come to you and they're resolved, not necessarily at a team meeting, but, with you and whatever two agencies or whomever, the issue might be with. I think you need to be patient. It took me months and months to get cases. But once they started, like I said, they rolled in. As a matter of fact, when we're done here, I have a meeting with the hospital because someone in the emergency room last night is possibly a case of physical elder abuse. You're not always going to win. You're not always going to win. We had a case in Washington County where a woman's daughter was easily, very, very provable taking her money. Mom was given all the information, shown the paperwork. She was very competent, knew what was going on. She didn't care. Because if she had gone forward with charges against her daughter, then the issue would have been, if she's got criminal charges, God forbid she goes to jail, who's going to care for me? The money's going to be hers in the end. She might as well have it now. And, the thing is, people are able to make decisions. If they're good decisions or bad decisions, and they have the ability to make those decisions, it's not up to us. We have to go with what they say. So in my book, I don't think of that as a win for her, but as long as she thinks it's a win for her, then that is what we operate with. We had another case where a woman's daughter opened 12 credit cards in her name. They lived next door to each other. She had the mail diverted to her house. She ran up $67,000 in credit card bills in her mother's name. Walked over to her mother's house, handed her the credit cards. She said, I've opened these in your name. This is the amount of money you owe. And I have made an appointment with you for a local attorney to file bankruptcy. The mother went to the sheriff's department, pressed charges against her daughter. The daughter has now had a felony conviction and is on a 5-year term of supervised probation. Restitution was not ordered in that case because our sheriff's department and the district attorney's office was able to get all of that, debt removed from her. So she did not owe any debt. Any restitution was not forthcoming. One of our most significant cases stemmed from Saratoga County, and it was adult protective was involved. It was a bank case. It was financial fraud. It was domestic violence. We were able to get the perpetrator evicted. We were able to get a stay away eviction. We were able to get the gentleman back on track with his finances, and he is, doing well. But I caution you, you're not always going to win. So please don't give up. Give up. Proceed, go forward. And if anyone has any questions or would like to go through and have, more conversation with me, I'm going to put my email and my direct contact number in the chat. Please feel free. Let the things that I've done correctly and done incorrectly help you so that you don't have to stumble. So please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much for allowing me to give you my information.
Great. Thank you so much, Darlene. So valuable to have your on the ground experience to inform people and to inspire people as well. We next will hear from Linda Laughlin-Pettit. Linda is Manager of Community and Government Relations at Denver City Attorney's Office, and she's been a key driver of that area's network-based case review work. Linda, over to you to tell us about what's happening in Denver.
Thank you, Ben, and thanks for having me today. I really appreciate this opportunity. You all have just heard some really great advice from the previous speakers and the really tangible steps that Darlene just gave you. Can't echo those enough. Really great advice. Next slide, please. So we have been running our MDT since 2013, January of 2013. We named it the Denver Forensic Collaborative for At-Risk Adults. We were able to work with the state legislation so that our MDT can serve as the APS at-risk team. And because of that, we brought in...
Sorry to interrupt you. We're getting a little bit of ringing from your microphone. I don't know if you can move to a different spot or do something to try to minimize that.
Let's see if this is better. Is it still ringing?
It is ringing.
I have no idea what to do with that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just continue then.
So sorry. As I was saying, we do hear cases both about elders and at-risk adults because it serves as this AP team. Next slide. But with that, we have found that it's a really good full spectrum group, and many of our partner agencies can address both. We typically have 25 partner agencies and organizations at the table. Typically, our attendance, which is still online at this point post-pandemic, is about 35 people. I would say that one tip I would add to what the others have already shared is start by inviting. If there is somebody in your community you think can really lend some expertise to your table, as Darlene said, take them to coffee, have a conversation with them and invite them in, and you might be surprised at who will say yes. One of our key partners is our Department of Public Health here in Denver, because they can get indoors that perhaps law enforcement can't get in, and certainly the APS can't get in, and prosecutors can't get in. And so when their field workers are out there, investigating, does this elder have ingress or egress, they might find that not only do they not have ingress egress, but the poor person has been relegated to a back bedroom and there are locks on the outside of the door. And can we now bring this to the table, staff it, and get other people into the home to get this person help? To Allison's point about the civil legal services, we have our public administrator's office at the table. And while they can serve functions more for clients specifically, they also do provide that civil legal advice that is so, so helpful in all of these different cases that we talk about. We also have the Office of Financial Empowerment, the Colorado Gerontological Society, and even the Division of Real Estate. So in our community, we have learned that what often goes hand in hand with financial exploitation is housing exploitation. And you all know that can be absolutely devastating and life altering for an older adult. And so having her at the table can sometimes give us insight into cases that we might not be able to get otherwise. I would also add that we had early on the University of Denver at our table, and I didn't list it on the slide, but I think that too can be a great partner. They were at the table for the first 5 years that we were together, and we were able to get some great research completed with their help, got some of that published, and it gave us some insights as to the help-seeking behaviors of the older adults in Denver. And we also then were able to substantiate that housing exploitation is very real, how it's impacting people, and the prevalence of it. And so if you happen to be in a college town, university town, that might be someone else you can add to the table. Next slide. So those of you who have done this work have all learned lessons, some of them more painful than others. One of the lessons we learned, about 8 years ago, was that we really can only have nonprofit and governmental agencies at our table. So we let a for-profit agency in, and immediately, we all start networking. This is pre-pandemic. We were all in person, and one of our other partner agencies hired them to work with a client. Money exchanged hands. And then it turned out that the for-profit agency wanted more money than was agreed upon, and they broke the client's confidentiality in a pretty public and egregious way. So I then had my original partner coming to me and saying, A, this is unethical. B, they shouldn't be at the table. And 3, if they continue to be at the table, we are leaving. So staffed it with the steering committee and ultimately decided to ask the for-profit partner to walk away. And we've not let any for-profit people come back. I just find that when money changes hands, you have a level of tension and disagreement that your group just doesn't need. That's not to say we don't invite conflict. I learned early on that if you can invite differing views and some of that dissonance, you will learn better lessons. But I also don't need my group to blow up because of money exchanging hands. And then I want to reiterate a point that Darlene said, when you don't have cases to staff, It's a great time to offer cross training. And as workers come and go in all of our different 25 agencies, we might be training on certain topics annually, like domestic violence. How often have we heard at the table, well, why doesn't that person just leave? Well, it's bad enough to ask that of a 25 or 40-year-old victim, but when the victim happens to be 78, it's a much different set of complexities. And so we're training, I would say probably biannually, on domestic violence and all those dynamics. We train annually most years on what APS can and cannot do, how they can substantiate a case, why they may not be able to take a case. Our law enforcement people have had to train repeatedly that you can't arrest your way out of every case. No matter how much we want people to be charged with those felonies, just can't happen. And so again, even when we have cases, we try to reserve time, 20 to 30 minutes of our meetings, to be able to have guest speakers or training and cross training, or to discuss systemic issues that our community is suddenly seeing, and how can we then approach that as a group. Next slide. So one of the most profitable things, beneficial things that we've been able to do is we got some federal grant funding to also be an enhanced MDT. And with that money, we were able to hire a senior resource navigator. She comes into cases when police cannot make an arrest, APS cannot substantiate the case. None of our agencies around the table can really get a hold on what's going on. And oftentimes there's scam cases, financial exploitation with family member, or victims with severe mental health issues, but who still are deemed competent by the system. And this navigator can go in to their homes so that it's not phone advocacy, it's really sitting down with them in their homes. She also often goes out with detectives when they're first responding to financial exploitation, to be that less scary, non-uniformed, no badge voice who can sit and face-to-face and just help them understand what's going on and why law enforcement may or may not be able to do what they're going to do. And then she provides the ongoing follow-up. I cannot tell you how many people have reached out to me as her supervisor and said, thank you so much for letting Lynn come sit with me. Financial exploitation wreaks incredible havoc, whether you've lost $504 or the 1.2 million. That either amount could be that person's life savings, their only cash in the bank, their only way of having food, of getting glasses, of getting assistive devices. And so to have someone come in the home and say, okay, let's breathe. Let's walk through this. Let me look at your computer and see. In one case specifically, Lynn was able to look at the computer and see that hackers had come in and were changing her passwords. So they always knew what was going on with her bills. They were watching her constantly. Lynn was able to get that completely shut off. We've been able to restore phone service for people when they've been so broke that they couldn't even have phone service or heat. She has been a lifeline to people. We all know that if someone's been scammed out of that 1.2 million, we're not getting that money back. But what this position does is restore hope and gives them someone to lean on, someone to walk that really painful journey with them. In one instance, Lynn was going in, she and the detective were going in and talking with the victim. They stopped her at the door. She was on her way to give $40,000 to a scammer. And just because they were there at her home, able to show her why this was a scam, how she was being scammed, they stopped that right in its tracks. Again, it's that old starfish story. We can't save every starfish that washes up on the shores, but for each one we do, each one that Lynn can go to and work with, that is life altering. And so if you have any kind of funding available and can bring in someone like that, I highly recommend it. Next slide. I will turn it over to Angela. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Thank you so much, Linda. And next we'll welcome Angela Rosado, who is the coordinator for the Elder Abuse Forensic Center in Riverside County. Angela.
Thank you, Ben. It's great to be here with you all today. let me go ahead and move to my first slide. I hope you all can hear me well.
We can.
Well, great. Thank you, Ben. A little bit about how we established the Riverside County Elder Abuse Forensic Center. We were founded in late 2014, but we did not begin operating in its full capacity until 2017. Our EAFC is grant funded. I'd also like to mention really the importance of the partnership between EAFC and our Adult Services Division. Beyond our grant funding, ASD provides additional funding support, such as contracts with our district attorney's office, contracts with our geriatricians, and also our geriatric nurses through our county hospital, RUHS. ASD also provides staffing resources. For example, I serve as the full-time elder abuse victim specialist for the grant and also the program. Our Adult Services Division is a primary source of referrals to the center. In 2017 is when our EAFC established our case review team, ultimately our enhanced multidisciplinary team, with its own members, its own core members, and launched our meetings. And really, it's an enhanced MDT with a wide range of services and resources, as well as many different areas of expertise, many disciplines represented amongst its team. So a little bit about the Forensic Center itself. Really, our goal is to strive to improve our community's ability to combat, investigate, and prosecute elder and dependent adult abuse, neglect, and exploitation through really enhanced collaboration and that service provision among partner agencies. That ability to be able to communicate openly and confidentially with each other is key, including all of the various disciplines that are on the team, providing that, as we've heard already, that education, that navigation in terms of how do we address the abuse that's before us and how do we prevent it from reoccurring. So really, it's just that team that really helps out. A little bit about our core team. It's just a dedicated group of professionals from Adult Protective Services, as I mentioned, our county hospital, our UHS, the UC Riverside School of Medicine, our district attorney's office, the sheriff's department throughout our county, including our coroner and public administrator, the DOJ, Division of Medi-Cal Fraud and Elder Abuse, Behavioral Health, the Ombudsman, Community Care Licensing, Public Guardian's Office, Inland Regional Center, and Legal Aid. We also have a financial management expert who serves on the team as well. So as you can imagine, all of these professionals coming together, it has a really big impact on our ability to effectively, provide services and really help to make sure that we're meeting our goals. We do have regular scheduled meetings where our core partner agencies can collaborate, determine what services should be recommended, and coordinate those response plans, really for the purposes of improving case outcomes. So the services that our EAFC provides are multiple. The first, we provide the expert MDT consultation by the team, which really is the goal of how we best serve the client being discussed, right? We like to have it person-centered, and so that we are making sure that we're really focusing on how we can best serve the client. We do specific services such as geriatric assessments, and that is really through a direct link to our geriatricians and our GCT, our geriatric care nurses, who conduct home visits to clients to assess capacity, safety in the home environment, such as fall risks in nutrition, reviewing medications, and really their ability to manage them well. Many times the client may not seek necessary medical treatment, so our nurses also assist with linking clients to medical providers and doctors to establish a continuity of care. Regarding the capacity assessments, those are determined, or those may become necessary when there is a need for conservatorship. And no alternatives to conservatorship, to probate conservatorship, are possible. Capacity assessments also fall within the realm of forensic evaluations, and I'll talk a little bit about those in a minute. We provide behavioral health assessments and coordinate those when they're needed. When we talk about forensic evaluations, these may be done by seeing the client in person and or providing a review of medical records, such as hospitalizations, photos, facility records, hospice records, examination findings, such as x-rays, blood work, and even medications. Looking at these records can aid in providing a findings report, which can confirm that the abuse occurred either accidentally or even perhaps inflicted by others, as we know and see. Furthermore, medical records or records from Inland Regional Center, if they happen to be a client or consumer, can also provide our doctors history and insight on whether or not a client has decisional capacity at the time that the abuse allegations occurred. So thinking about those financial exploitation cases, is there a need to assist with the investigation and determine whether or not a victim had decisional capacity at the time, where they perhaps signed over their home, their residence to a suspected abuser? So those types of forensic examinations really are based on history that is available in order to ascertain that. Our EAFC doctors also have the ability to go to court on either probate or criminal matters to provide expert witness testimony about their findings. These findings may also support in seeking protective interventions such as APS-initiated restraining orders, higher levels of care, or probate conservatorships, as I mentioned. As a person-centered case review team, we meet twice a month for 2 hours and take really every minute of those 2 hours for new cases scheduled and updates on cases that have been referred. We also schedule case conference meetings in between our regular scheduled meetings when requested. Additionally, we've added a second meeting right before our regular scheduled EMDT meetings. And those separate meetings are really for self-neglect cases that are referred to the center. And we feel that those are important because there still may be a need for capacity assessments. As many of us may know, for those who are self-neglecting, there is a higher likelihood that they may become a victim of abuse by others as well. So we take a look at those vulnerabilities and we really help to support that need for that service. As a result of the case review and recommendations discussed at our meetings, we seek agreement on recommendations, which really serve as our coordinated response plan. We look to measure client outcomes. Really, how did the service and support address the abuse and provide the client with the needed resource to prevent further abuse? Looking into such areas as alternatives to conservatorship, connections to medical providers, thorough investigation and protective interventions, follow up on criminal investigations, and also elder independent adult prosecutions based on the cases which are filed by the district attorney's office. And my last slide here, I wanted to focus on what happens outside of our EAFC meetings, which really help us to maintain an enhanced MDT and exactly how we equip each other as a team in order to remain, a functioning and healthy team. We do that by holding quarterly planning meetings with our core team members. So these planning meetings do not involve case review discussions. We also provide an annual retreat training as a team through best practices such as team surveys focusing on customer services, assessing team member psychological safety, as Talitha mentioned earlier, their roles and responsibilities, agreement on ground rules for our meetings, team building activities. Are we getting to know each other? Are we understanding each other's perspectives and ways of thinking? So really that provides an environment for open conversations to occur so that even the work outside of these meetings flows well and remains strong. We look at and discuss what is working well for EFC, what needs improvement in terms of our services, case review, and meeting processes. From there, we seek agreement and discuss solutions for changes or support needed for continual improvement. A few examples of improvement on best practices is we've created a brief training video very recently for all adult protective services staff and another for our community partners throughout the county, which highlights our MDTs and what types of cases can be referred to the EAC. Also, in my role as coordinator, I connect with each referring agent to review the referral, confirm and summarize the goal, and also cover how they can best prepare for their case presentation. We take a look and making sure that they're prepared, that they feel comfortable in the meeting, that the team is well aware if, let's say, it's their very first presentation, so that we can all keep each other focused and really making sure that we're focusing on that goal of that referral. Also, what they can expect during the meetings and even after the meeting. As the coordinator of our EFC, I always make sure that I provide any additional support or communication amongst the agencies who are tasked with any specific recommendations on a case review. And then after those meetings, we also seek feedback from the referring agent through a survey. So they can give us immediate feedback on their experience and the hopes that we continually grow and improve. As we look at lessons learned from our case discussion reviews, including things as which agencies we need to include at the table for case reviews, which agencies or even hospitals would benefit from training and outreach from the Elder Abuse Forensic Center. As mentioned earlier, and I think this is such an important point, we have discovered the need for training and retraining. Cross-training as a team is so vital. It really increases the ability to, understand each other well, especially when you have some who maybe retire and are replaced with different professionals. We've had a long-standing team, and so luckily we haven't experienced that too much. But as we know, people promote and they retire, and so we've had to make sure that we maintain, the training mechanism for the team, year by year. And it also helps to understand the scope of each agency that's represented on the team. Over the last several years, we've partnered with Adult Services Division and our EFC core member agencies to hold an annual law enforcement summit. This is really our opportunity to invite all law enforcement stations throughout Riverside County to provide a day of training on elder independent adult criminal investigations, aimed to increase collaboration between agencies and provide outreach regarding our services. We also provide a law enforcement resource guide, which highlights areas such as how to obtain records, frequently asked questions, how and when to work with the long-term care ombudsman when abuse occurs in licensed facilities, and of course, mandated reporting. What we've consistently found is the need for cross-training among agencies is crucial to understanding each other's scope, practices, as well as limitations. Last but not least, we also support and hold an annual Riverside Elder and Dependent Adult Abuse Symposium, which features a keynote speaker and breakout sessions for service providers from all agencies serving the older population in our county. So thank you for allowing me to share today, and I think we may move back to Ben for Q&A. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you so much, Angela. And I'll invite you and our other panelists from today to share your video. We do have some time for questions and answers. And we actually wanted to first start with Linda. Linda, you were corresponding a bit with a participant who raised an important and interesting question. Do you want to just kind of share what that person asked and what your thoughts on that question are?
Absolutely. So Mark asked, what are the specifics on how to form the units? And so, as I said, it starts with an invitation, and I'm sure my peers will all jump in too. What we did was we did coffees and conversations with the people, the key stakeholders. We brought the key stakeholders together, gave them an example of what a case review would look like, and handed out an actual made up case so that everybody could weigh in, and we walked them through what a case review would be like. They all, we tapped into all their expertise to see what they could add and how we would address this case collaboratively, and then said, okay, do you see value for this with your teams? And would you help us get this launched in 2 months? Here's what we're going to meet. We had a structure, we had a facilitator, we had a location, and they all said yes. They came to the table, and again, we've been meeting ever since. I'm not going to say it's as easy as, that 30-second response. I'm echoing again, but it does start with the invitation, fair amount of coffee, fair amount of ego stroking, depending on who's in your community. I'll let my colleagues respond to.
Yeah, Linda, I think that's a great point. I think in addition to that, one thing that I would really suggest, especially as you're finding who you're steering, like who kind of those key stakeholders are, is once you find, a lot of times it's like, who's that one person? Who's that person that you need? And so once you find that person, ask them if they have suggestions. Again, sounds obvious, but it's just one of those things that can be really helpful to find who that next person is. And I even go a step further than that. I ask if I can directly say that Linda is the one who gave me your name and it encouraged me to reach out to you because she thought this might be worth your time. That was huge for me when I was starting up in one of my counties, when the chief of police actually was like, yeah, use my name for everybody you call. I don't care. And that got people to the table, especially with the chief of police. And in addition to coffee. So.
Great. Thank you both. I want to jump to our next question so we have time to at least get to one additional question. And I think this is an interesting one that helps people understand how these case review teams work. What proportion of cases get reviewed, and how do people select which ones get elevated and subject to that multidisciplinary review? Angela, if you don't mind weighing in on that, and then maybe we'll hear from Talitha and Darlene on that same question.
Sure, absolutely. So the referrals really happen. I'll be the first point of contact. So I will immediately seek to understand what the circumstances are and make sure that we have all the information on the referral. And so I have a direct line. As a matter of fact, we're chatting almost on a daily basis, myself with my director, and who's a neuropsychologist, and my associate director, who's the geriatrician, with my own department, with adult services, to make sure that if there is a need to escalate, we have the ability to go ahead and schedule those case conferences that I mentioned earlier. So we don't have to wait until the first or third Monday of every month in order to get immediate attention. And sometimes that may look like, is the older adult severely impaired? Are they driving? what is happening amongst this within the circumstances of the case and the client that really require us to get together quickly in order to coordinate a plan. So those are some ways in which we identify, what cases come and when they come.
Great. Thank you, Angela. Talitha, in your position of being able to observe a bunch of different networks and case review teams, what are patterns and what proportion get reviewed and which ones?
I think this is something that's very individual to each team and community. You get to decide what cases you hear based on the needs that you have. So you might partner with APS and say, bring cases where you need to hear from our forensic accountant or from our geriatrician, or where you need a medical record review, bring those cases. You could also say, we're going to hear cases that we know are going to go to the DA's office for prosecution. And that's what our intake is going to look like. So it's about defining your intake process to meet the needs that you have in your community. And it can look different for every team as long as you are meeting those goals.
Great. Thank you, Talitha. Darlene, in the Mohawk region.
In our region, the normal referral is, a call or some sort of information gets to me by the referral source. We'll have a lengthy conversation about how the case got to them, what they're seeing, what they're looking for as possible outcomes, what kind of services they feel are needed to get some sort of resolution to the problem. And then we decide if it's, maybe just one thing is needed, like maybe somebody is just looking to get a power of attorney revoked. So that might just be a case referral to the referring agency, myself, and our civil legal attorney. If that case involves, some financial fraud, some concerns about the individual's well-being at home, are they safe? Things like that would come to the whole team. I would rather bring something to the whole team and have people chime in and come up with recommendations or questions that sometimes I'm not even thinking of, or sometimes that the referral source is not thinking of. So it may just be, one time a team meeting and then go back to a consultation. But I always want to err on the side of caution to get as much recommendation and insight from other areas as I can, rather than just, be the one who's saying, okay, let's just do this. I don't want to miss out on something that might mitigate a serious issue. So I like to err on the side of caution.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And we are just running a couple minutes over time, so we're leaving a lot of questions unanswered. We'll have to all get together and answer more questions at some future date. But I wanted to issue a huge thank you to our presenters and panelists today. This has been a really enlightening event, and we hope it's given people in the field ideas for where to go next with their own case review teams or potential case review teams. So just before we leave you, we wanted to do a flyby look at some resources that are in the slide deck. So don't miss this chance to download the slide deck. It's at the bottom of your layout there in the downloads box. And there you'll find a link to the EFPRN Network Development Guide that Jennifer referred to at the beginning of our webinar. Jennifer also referenced the YouTube library of elder justice webinars, and please do check those out. And those are just some of the resources offered by the Office for Older Americans at the CFPB. You can go to consumerfinance.gov/older Americans to get the full set. And here's contact information for the Office for Older Americans, Elder Networks at cfpb.gov. With that, we'll let people go, and thank you very much for your time. And look in your email, keep an eye on your inbox for a notice that the recording has been posted. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.